everyone. So for today's video, we are talking about a book that I have been so stoked to get my hands on. It's Kellyanne's first book. It's Rebel Witch, and I love it. So I got the audiobook the day that she was like, oh, by the way, this is out. The physical books won't ship yet, but this is available, so I got that immediately. And I listened to about half by the time this showed up. I was listening to it on my drives to work and whatever, and then the physical copy came. And to be honest, I'm at a point where I'm realizing I don't really like audiobooks as much as I like physical copies. But if you're going to get an audiobook, she reads it. Now, onto the actual book. This came just a couple weeks later, and I am so excited. It actually came earlier than Amazon had said. It said it was going to be towards May, like May 12th or something was when it was supposed to publish and ship out. And then it came in the middle of April, which was awesome. So I have been reading through this. I didn't want to just plow through it very quickly and just get to the end to get to the end. I wanted to enjoy this book because it's been a long time making. I've wanted her to write a book for several years now, and I'm very excited about this. So this book, I did have a lot of worry going into it that it was just going to be yet another beginner witch book. Here's the elements, here's the wheel of the year, here's the basic ethics and different types of witchcraft and so on and so forth. And technically this could be for older witches as well, but you know, mostly for beginners. And you know, some books I will want to talk about at some point, but it talks about like kind of making it your own, and then it really doesn't give you any ideas for that. This book does. This one encourages you immensely to make the craft your own. I loved it. There's so many things, like there are some things for beginners, obviously, but she doesn't go into too much of that. If anything, it feels more like a brief of like, hey, remember this thing? It's there, ta-da, and then moves on. And there are quite a few things that I hadn't thought of, hadn't really heard about, and I loved it. And I love when I can read a book aimed at beginners, also aimed at elder witches, that covers everything. It's got something for everyone. It's all new information if you're newer, or if you've been practicing for over a decade like myself, it's still got new information for you that you're like, huh, never thought of that one. So I did pick out a few quotes that I wanted to talk about today, just some different things that stood out just by the book, in case you're curious, but these are just a few things that I thought about that I liked. So on page 16, she talks about, okay, I'll just read the quote. Pack your workings with your personal symbolism and the results will speak for themselves. That is something that in my practice I'm definitely getting more into. Making it your own. I've come to the point in my witchcraft journey that it's just a path of symbolism, and that's okay. It's symbolic of what does this plant mean to me, to the collective, whatever. Doing these actions is symbolic of wanting the thing to happen. And I just love that she talked about a concept that I was already thinking about, but couldn't quite put into words. She definitely has a way of presenting information much more digestible than my rambling, like, I don't know, here's this weird concept. And then on page 55, again, a concept that I have been wanting to kind of reevaluate, and a key theme for Samhain is fear, because honestly, I have not really had too many people pass away around Samhain. And to me, it is more of, like, I've celebrated my ancestors, and I'll still always visit the cemeteries around that time, but I would rather honor these people at various points in the year, not necessarily just at Halloween, because it does take it away a lot. Whereas for me, if I think of Samhain as a time of conquering fear, and she actually talks about this later on in the like sacred texts section part later on, of picking a book or writing of whatever and using that as sort of a sacred text in your practice. For me, it's the book It by Stephen King. The concept, the themes behind it, so accurate for Samhain and life in general. If you don't want to be spoiled, the movie does not do the book justice. Go read the book. Even the new one, it does better, but it's not as good as the book. It still leaves out a lot. It's a big book. But the basic premise is that the clown creature thing is your fears. It feeds off your fears. And if you look at Halloween and Samhain, it's all about fears. And so I just love the idea of it. I love the concept of just confronting your fears, having it around you all of the time. So much imagery of death and creepy things and all of the stuff. So I loved that, again, she was putting things that I was already kind of formulating and like just gnawing on in my brain into words. Page 102, we have hold a tea party for your new arrival. Now for this, she was specifically talking about like bringing in new tools, but I loved this idea of bringing in anything new deities, ancestors, whatever you want to work with, the elements. Sitting down and having a tea party sounds kind of rad, not gonna lie. Like, I have talked about that kind of because I'm in a lot of witchy groups and it's just constant new beginners. And so you get the same questions on repeat every week. And one of those is like, how do you start working with a deity? And I love this idea of have a tea party because that's kind of what I've recommended. Light a candle, sit down, have a cup of tea or whatever, and chat with them. But the idea of just sitting down and having a tea party sounds even better. On page 107, she says, I do sometimes cast a circle around my bed before going to sleep if I have been having difficult dreams or trouble sleeping. I used to do something similar to this. I never really had the idea pop into my mind of like cast a circle around my bed and then go to sleep. But I have, years ago in early parts of my practice, I would cast a circle on my floor because my old room I had a lot more space than I do now. And I would sleep inside of the circle. Instead of putting the circle around my bed, I would sleep on the floor. But it worked, same concept. A little bit later on that page is one of my favorite quotes that truly is just the epitome of Kellyanne, and I love it. It's so great. This is why I love her writing style. She needs to write all the books because they're so good. So she was talking about just like some of the reasons as to why it might be hard to cast a circle, some different things that might come up and whatever. So her example was, I have restricted mobility, so I can't move around to visualize the circle being formed. And that kind of pisses on my cornflakes a bit. And I was just like, that's like such an oddly specific example, but I love it. And I do love that she really tried to incorporate everyone, people who do have mobility issues, and also really kind of in that ballpark, low energy or chronically ill people, when you are having flare-ups and different things, you do kind of start to fall into that category of maybe you can't walk in a circle right now, or maybe you don't have the energy to, you know, go and set up a fabulous little altar. Like, maybe you just got the energy to lay in bed. And she has options for you, and I love that. She also gives ideas if you do have energy to do things and the ability and whatnots. She really tried to be way more inclusive than a lot of books are, and I appreciated that greatly. On page 140, I have a permanent altar that lives in my imagination, and I do really love that she used and explained the concept of the imagination, because I struggled with that for years in my practice, because I was like, what is the difference between imagining it and visualizing it? And what's the difference between my imagination and like the astral? It made no sense, and I had to find a reason why. And she kind of goes over it in a way that younger me really could have used. Like, I've gotten to the point now where I've just accepted that I'm like, it's your imagination. Does it make it any less real? But I really do appreciate that she talked about that. Younger me would have loved if that was widely available at the time. But here we are. It's now there for the newer witches, or older witches that are still struggling with that concept. On page 166, find safe places in the tapestry of your past, that's a tongue twister right there, where you can hide your secrets, cook up your ideas, and take time to reconnect with yourself. Think of memories as locations that provide you with evocative settings for transformations to take place. I love this, because I do, again, it's things that I've already kind of been doing, but I have used this idea for shadow work, especially when I was really wanting to become an adult, that now I'm just like, why? But when I was 19 turning 20, I did this major week-long ritual where I did this kind of a thing. I went to a very specific place in my past, in my memories, and I confronted my version of myself from that era and worked through my issues and went through memories that were very hard and difficult and dealt with them. So more of a shadow work side, but could easily work nowadays as I'm struggling with adulthood because it's hard to be an adult. But yeah, I loved that idea. Again, it's concepts that you don't hear about a lot in the witchy books, which I love. Again, she needs to write more books. 175, releasing and goodbye ritual. This is one I instantly want to add to my book of shadows, to my book of knowledge, because I need this ritual. It's so good. Check it out. If obviously just go buy this book, but it's on 175 and I love this ritual. So then 183, sleeping, cooking, working out, making love, watching movies, organizing paperwork, or chatting with a friend on the phone. All these can be seen as part of your witchcraft routine. Mundane activities can be injected with the witchy vibe, approached from a witchy perspective, or a witch's perspective, and fueled with witchy intention. And I definitely have been there recently, and that is one of the things that I'm planning on doing more throughout the Beltane season specifically, is injecting more witchery into my daily life, into the daily things that I have to do, such as work, and getting up, and usual morning routines, and getting ready, do a little bit of a glamour spell when you're putting on your makeup and doing your hair, jewelry magic when you put your jewelry on for the day, the little things. Ritual showering even, doesn't even have to be a bath if you don't want to take a bath, because I get that. I only like to take baths in our new bathtub that's super lovely. Otherwise, they were really not my jam. Just different things, just injecting more witchery into little things. A little bit of kitchen magic, even if it's not the full meal, even just an ingredient that I do. I really loved that. So, continuing on, because this is getting long and I do have to actually go to work. Page 204. A rebel witch is usually a mystical magpie. In other words, you see something shiny and you want it. There might be hundreds of things you want to try, so many doors you want to open, or things you want to study. But if you try to do everything all at once, or trying to do everything at once, you'll risk burning out. A schedule will help you stick to a manageable number of experiments in your craft. Yeah. So I am actually at a point where I need to do this. And she does kind of talk about scheduling your witchcraft life and whatnot. Doesn't have to be terribly, fancy or anything. But I had planned since early March, February, even January, honestly, quite a while ago, of doing a ritual with Odin for the 9 days leading up to May Day, Beltane, because somewhere I had read that that's the time when he was supposed to hang from the tree, and I was going to do a ritual for that. I was going to do a whole thing, working with the runes, doing the stuff. Here we are, it's April 30th, and I completely forgot, until I remembered today, and I'm like, well, it's Beltane tomorrow. Oops. So if I would have had it on my calendar, which I have mine right above my altar for a reason, because I put the moon phases, I remember the Sabbats because that is a huge part of my practice, but if I wanted to do other things, like the days to Odin, messed that one up. And I also want to put in there different things to do. So one of the things that I am planning is to do all of her exercises in this book on either the full or the new moon as my ritual, because I don't ever really know what I want to do on the moons per se. I've kind of been doing the same thing the past couple now, and it's fine, but I like the idea of this. So I'm going to do either a chapter or two of the exercises, and that's going to be my moon ritual to do. Doesn't have to be a spell every freaking time, people. And a focus and all of these things that everyone tells you to do. Part of being a rebel witch is making it work for you, which for me, saying that I have to do a spell with a specific focus at a specific time does not work, because I won't be in the mood for it at that time. I need to do it now. as part of an ADHD thing, there is the conversation of an object or a thing being now or not now. And if it's not now, the odds of doing it get slimmer and slimmer. So 237, I've always found that witchcraft complements reality rather than entirely departing from it. Reality doesn't include being able to fly or make everything perfect all the time. And I think that was a great way of describing witchcraft, because I do think a lot of people tend to, especially when you explain it to other people, they're like, oh, so you think you can defy the laws of nature? And you're like, not really. And this is one of the greatest ways, I think, of trying to explain witchcraft to non-witches, because I am very out and proud as a witch. I mean, I wear witchy jewelry all the time, so, and if people ever give me any qualms about it, it's like, no, I'm allowed to wear, my religious jewelry, thank you. And if a place had a problem with that, I would not work there, and I would leave. Because it is a big part of my life. They're all magically infused. They all have purposes in my spiritual practice, in my religion. And so naturally, it comes up. What exactly is all of that about? And I think this is a great way of explaining, like, oh, so you think you're a witch? So you think you can, like, cast spells and fly in a broom? And you're like, no! Actually, it's much more boring than that. I wish I could fly, but I just had to take an airplane for that. But I will probably do a protection spell while on the airplane because I have anxiety and I would like to not crash. Thank you. So anyways, overall, that's all of my notes that I took. There are definitely more things in here that could be discussed. There was mirror magic and video game magic and all of these different things that I had never heard of, but I loved. So definitely a book that I would recommend reading multiple times, especially if you are a new witch. I am planning on doing a thorough read through. Somebody else who posted a review talked about how they did a lot of the exercises, like they'd read it and then do the thing. Didn't do that. I'm planning on doing it during the moons. So what I'm gonna do is, as a part of my either full or new moon ritual, is to read that chapter again and then do the exercise as my ritual thing to do. I'll probably review it prior to doing the ritual, get the supplies, and then read the chapter and do the thing. But yeah, overall, this is such a great book. I really wish there were more out there like this that are not just the same information. Scott Cunningham's classic solitary practitioner. Oh my god, I can see the cover. Can't remember. Guide for the Solitary Witch? No, he doesn't use the word witch. Anyways, the classic that my brain has decided to piece out on the flippin' title for, like, that information is still pretty relevant. Like, obviously there's some dated stuff now. We don't have cassettes. You don't have to order things through the mail. You can just go to Amazon or whatever, local shop if they have an online store situation thing, but for the most part, like, the information is just been regurgitated in so many books. It gets old, honestly. I got myself burnt out quite a bit on the witchy books. And I do very quickly for a lot of them because it's like, this was already talked about, getting close to 40, 50 years ago. And it's weird to think that, the 70s was that long and 60s was that long ago, but it was. And it's the same thing. And this was a breath of fresh air. We didn't have that fucking problem. It was fine. It was just like, wow, it's kind of the same thing, but not. And she writes it in a much more fun and entertaining way. Now, if you don't like her verbiage, you will probably be bored with it. Not gonna lie. But overall, I recommend this book. I think everyone should have a copy of it. I think it should be top 5 recommended books for anyone in the woo-woo land, whether it's witchcraft, New Age, pagan, Wiccan, whatever. This book, everyone needs a copy of it. I do hope she writes more. If you want more content from her, she does have a YouTube channel. It is just her name. I will link it down below. She's got so many videos and they are fabulous. And she also has Patreon where she has more additional content and different things that she does over there. I'm on her Patreon, so I get to see all of the wonderful fun things. And she also does readings and various stuff that I would, once I can afford it again, I want to do with her because they are very much well worth it. If you do have the option to work with her, her readings and sessions with her are so amazing. She has so much skill. It's just, it blows your mind. So, at least it did me. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear my experiences going through this book, I will be talking about it on my own Patreon. Probably, I don't know, like the weekend after whatever the moon phase thing is going to be. Because we're still working through Inner Temple of Witchcraft on there as well. So, anywho, until next time, thank you for watching. I will see you all soon. If there is anything you would like me to talk about on my channel, please leave it in the comments down below. And I will try to talk to you about it. Words. Anyways, thank you, and I will see you all soon.